Power Hour with John Lee.
Through that. So we're going to begin with Mr. Bernie Madoff. A lot of people know Bernie, a lot of people don't, so I'll just tell you who he was. He was a working class guy from Queens, maybe middle class, maybe working class, but he certainly wasn't posh. And he was from Queens, New York, and we all know that Queens isn't famously salubrious, you know, especially not way back when. And he grew up in Queens, and he was Jewish. A lot of Jewish people in New York, obviously. And he must have been intelligent. He must have been clever. He was interested in finance, and he was interested in the stock market. And he created a thing called the NASDAQ, which is the digital stock market. So everything was done on paper. And then Bernie Madoff comes along and invents the NASDAQ. So it's a digital stock market that you see with the screens. That was invented by Bernie Madoff and his little brother, who's supplemental to the tale. And apart from that, he also had an investment arm of his business, meaning you give me your money, I'll do some clever things with it, and then you'll make a massive profit. And that's why you pay me. All right, fair enough. But what did he do that was unusual? Well, he gained access primarily to the system. He got on the inside. So he came from the outside. He wasn't of the social class to mix with the top boys and girls in New York and on Wall Street and down in Martha's Vineyard or the Hamptons and all these posh places. Because he was from Queens, but he managed to get on the inside and become an insider, to a large extent anyway. And he was actually he became the most respected man on Wall Street. He was often referred to as the adult in the room. And he was surrounded, if you watch Wall Street, the film from the 80s, or even the remake or whatever it's supposed to be, the part 2 of it, they're all dirty little bastards. I mean, you can't trust them. It's a cesspit. They're all stealing from everybody, stealing from each other, front running, which is using insider information, doing all that shit. So you can't trust people on the stock market. You can't trust people on Wall Street, and that was his opportunity, you see, because Bernie Madoff was a predator. These are all predators. These con men and con artists are predators. That's what they are. And he knew this. He saw this weakness in people where they needed to feel secure. So every time you give your money to somebody and say, right, you go and do clever things with that and then bring the profits back to me, you know there's a strong chance that this person is actually a thief and a liar. And you're not really sure what they're getting up to, and you don't even understand the jargon and the lingo used to describe what he's doing with your money. So Bernie Madoff saw that as a gap in the market, and he stepped into that brilliantly. And he created a very exclusive mechanism for the rich to invest. So it's very, very difficult to get access to Bernie Madoff. You could literally walk up to him in the street and say, look, there's $1 million. You can have 100,000 and invest the rest. No, won't touch you. Very exclusive, very difficult to get in with Bernie Madoff. You had to know somebody who knew somebody to get you in there with Bernie. And then he would accept your money. And he would send, inverted commas, he would send a readout of what he's invested in, what he's put your money into this month. And you'd see nice, steady 10, 12% growth over the year. So if you put 10 million in because you're rich, you get about $1 million at the end of the year, maybe more, every year. Nice and steady, nice and solid. So people felt secure with that. The only problem was Bernie Madoff was a thief. He never made a single investment. Never. He just took the money and put it in his bank account. And he ran what's called a Ponzi scheme, coming from a guy called Ponzi, an Italian immigrant to Boston in 1920 or around that point. That's when he started his Ponzi scheme. So what you do is you bring in new people all the time. So I start with 10 people. They give me money. They think that's going into investment vehicles and all that. It's not. It's going in my bank account. And then I bring in another 30 people based on that, and I take their money as well, and I can give that new money to the original 10. So if any of those 10 people or some of them come to me for money, I've got the money because I'm bringing in new people all the time and I'm making more money. But the money's just sitting in my bank account. It's just the money I've stolen. You're not really investing it worldwide. It's not going anywhere other than my pockets, to emphasise that. And the reason I emphasise it is because he did this for a very long time. Many, many years this guy was doing this on a massive scale. And he actually stole $65 billion. 65 billion, that's 65,000 million this guy stole. And he ruined lives. And people say, well, he stole from the rich. Okay, that makes it better. I don't think it does. I mean, obviously in the context of Wall Street, this happened in 2008 when the Wall Street, when the stock market collapsed and destroyed the global economy. And the top bosses of all the, the Wall Street banks, so, your Jamie Dimons and all these kinds of people, they basically got paid for what they did. They destroyed the economy, kicked millions of people, literally, millions of families out of their homes onto the streets, and then went and got bailouts from the government, 700 billion they got to share amongst themselves, gave it to themselves as profits, on top of as bonuses, on top of the money they already had and they were continuing to make. They gave themselves bonuses and then, went round and distributed the money amongst their friends. None of them ever went to jail. Barack Obama completely refused to do anything about it. No Wall Street executives went to prison for what they did to the poor. But Bernie Madoff went to prison for what he did to the rich. Because you steal from the rich, you're fucked. You steal from the poor, you get a slap on the back and a bonus. And that is absolutely real and true, and you can see it. In Google Wall Street executives sent to prison for stealing from the poor. Nothing. Bernie Madoff, boom, rest of your life in jail, mate. And this is what happened to him. Eventually he was caught because the whole thing, the bubble burst on Wall Street and he was exposed and they found out, look, this guy, he was saying, I've got a couple of 100 million left. And that's a question in itself. He had 65 billion. What's he done with the other $64.8 billion? Where do you spend that without leaving a trace? He hasn't spent all that really, has he? So where is it? It was a basic question. And one of the people that was asking questions was a guy called Harry Markopoulos, who was a tremendously intelligent man, a mathematician and an economics expert, an economist, I suppose that's called. And he looked at it. He looked at the numbers and he looked at the profits involved, and he just said, nah, that's bollocks. Nobody's doing that. You can't do that. It's a scam. And people say, well, it's Bernie Madoff. It can't be a scam, This is the top man on Wall Street. He'd never do that, really. So 4 hours later, he calls back to his mate and says, look, this is a Ponzi scheme. It's a classic, bit like a pyramid scheme, but not exactly the same. And people couldn't believe it. And he demonstrated it. He ran the mathematics behind it, and he demonstrated what Bernie Madoff was doing, that it was a massive scam. And he went to the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, the people who are supposed to be watching Bernie Madoff and his ilk, and said, look, this is a scam. This guy's stealing all this money. He's a thief. Sort it out. But of course, Bernie Madoff was on advisory boards for the SEC, etc. And these people were scared of Bernie Madoff, basically. And they were all up to the tits in it. I don't believe that he did this on his own, you see. I don't believe one man was typing out all these bullshit receipts, or you've invested in this, for thousands of clients. The man had a global footprint. He was present worldwide, all across Asia, all across Europe, all across America, obviously. And his clients are all getting these individually crafted, sheets of bullshit every month, saying, yeah, McDonald's, yeah, Adidas, all these really obvious investments. And this is one guy, sitting in his office just churning out these these fake receipts. No, obviously there were many more people involved, and they were all financial experts, or you're not getting a job with Bernie Madoff to begin with. So I do think he was a sacrificial lamb. I think he was absolutely guilty, but they threw him out. And I think the main reason that you get thrown out is when you're in the club, but you're not of the club. Do you know what I mean? They'll let you join, but not on a full membership, really. You're not a gold member. And if it all goes tits up, you're going out of the boat. Definitely. And that's what happened to Bernie Madoff. All the top guys who did all the top stealing on Wall Street, they never went to prison. But Bernie Madoff did. And it was quite rightly so, because a lot of these people that were victims, they were rich, but they were good people. They were rich because they were hard-working, intelligent people. They worked for 40 years, 60 hours a week. And then they get to retirement age, and they're rich and they're comfortable, and they're, looking forward to the retirement. And this dirty bastard comes and steals all the money. And that's why I say it's not okay just because they're rich. I don't believe that rich people are just automatically bad. I'll just be very clever and very successful. And then they've got the families, and they're trying to look after the families for the next 2 generations maybe. And it all gets stolen away after decades of hard work. So that's really, really ugly. But yeah, the fact that nobody came down on him, I just want to remind you that Harry Markopoulou went to the SEC 5 times and told them what he was doing, and they did nothing to stop him. And he was on 5 billion. The first time Markopoulou went, he'd stole about 5 billion, and that went up to 65 billion. So he was allowed to steal an additional $60 billion after he was reported to the authorities that are supposed to control that kind of thing. And there were thousands of victims that did not really need to be victimized. And so Bernie Madoff was a pure predator. And what he sold was security. I'm not like these guys. I'm not a Wall Street barracuda. I'm not a vulture. I'm solid. I'm dependable. I'm a cautious investor. Not an investor, just a thief, just a dirty thief. And he went to prison, where I think he will remain. And so that's just a financial dude who ruined lives all over the world, by the way. And we're going to rock to a different kind of predator, a more violent kind of predator. Although that's very violent there, what Bernie Madoff is doing. It's not physically violent, but there is a violence to it, There's an aggression to it. Jack Unterwelger. Good name, Unterwelger. He was a predator, a pure predator, Jack Unterwelger. And what did he sell? He sold redemption. Why? Well, he was very poor. Again, Jack Unterwelger, and he grew up in Austria because he was Austrian, and he didn't know his father. Okay, his mother was apparently a prostitute, at least until he was born. Hence the not knowing of the father, who was possibly an American soldier. And he grows up very poor. He ends up living with the grandfather. He's going through the kind of Borstal system or reform school system in Austria. And he's doing some violent crimes. And the guy murders a young girl, an 18-year-old girl, takes her out in the woods needlessly, obviously. But he's robbing her, but it's not enough for Jack. So he takes her out into the woods and brutally murders her. And he gets caught for that, and he goes to prison. And he's in prison for many years, but Jack's not stupid. And what he does is he starts to write, and he writes all kinds of things. He's writing plays, he's writing poetry, and he writes a novel, which becomes a bestseller. And apparently it's very, very good, and he was celebrated by the literati, by the connoisseurs of literature in Austria, who I'm sure are very sophisticated people. And while he's actually in prison, they make a film of the book, and the book is an autobiography, or at least it's supposed to be. Well, it was written by Jack Unterwelger. How much of it is absolutely nailed on true, I'm not sure. But they made a film of it, and eventually Jack Unterwelger becomes very famous. People are reading the book, people are watching the film. And who is this guy? Well, he's in prison. Well, how long's he been in prison? Well, about 14 years. So, pressure builds to get him out. And after 15 years, he gets parole. And they bring Jack Unterwelger out of prison. And this is a big event, really, in Austria, because people have been putting a lot of pressure to get this guy out of prison. And as I say, what he's selling is redemption, because it's the idea, which was very popular and important in Austria at the time, that just because somebody does something bad doesn't mean that they will stay bad and remain bad, scarred or tattooed for the rest of their life with what they've done. They can be redeemed. They can come back and rejoin society, having learnt from their mistakes, which is very important to people all over the world. And so when he came out of prison, people were very much invested in this idea that Jack Unterwelger is a shining example of redemption and of rehabilitation, etc. And he was celebrated, as I say, and he was brought on television to have debates about the prison system, etc. And he did very well. And he was a very intelligent man, very charismatic. And what he did was he set himself up as an author, but also as a journalist. And people loved him, and wouldn't hear a word against him. However, while he was doing this, he was also going out at night and murdering prostitutes. He was doing what he did before. He was taking them out into the woods and he was brutally murdering them in the woods. And he was working as a journalist. He just kind of appointed himself as a journalist. And he was going down to the red light districts to visit these prostitutes, but wearing a different jacket, basically, and saying, "No, I'm a journalist and I'm doing a story about this serial killer that's on the loose. Are you scared when you get in a car, etc.? It's me. I'm a psycho serial killer, and I'm pretending to be a journalist so that I can interview you." I feel like he wanted to know exactly what impact he was having on these women. He wanted to taste their fear, and he wanted to go down and look them in the eyes and see what they had to say about the shadow of fear that he was casting over the red light district, while he was just walking on the clouds, really. He couldn't be touched. Nobody, he was like officially not Jack. You can't even say it's Jack because he's the symbol of redemption in this country. But it was Jack, and he was killing them on the regular basis. And he wasn't satisfied with that. Well, he's a predator. I don't know if predators are ever satisfied. And what he decided to do was go to America. So he did. And he went to Los Angeles. And he goes in there. Don't forget, this guy's a serial killer. And he's killed several women already in Austria. And he goes to America. He goes to Los Angeles. And he walks into a police station saying, "I'm Jack Unterwelger. I'm a journalist in Austria, and I'm doing a story about prostitution and street crime, etc. in LA, and I would like some information." So they extended the courtesy of giving him a drive along. So they take him out in a police car, and they're driving him round, and they take him down to the red light district, which I suppose he requested. And they took him down to the red light district and said, "Yeah, these are all the prostitutes, and this is this is where they come out, and this is what time they come out, and this is where they stay. All right, thanks, see you later." So as soon as they're gone, he's into the hotel on the right in the middle of the red light district, and he's out at night. And what does he do? Have a guess. Correct. He kills prostitutes. So while he's in LA, getting ride-alongs with the police, so he can identify the prostitutes, where they are and how to get to them, he's actually taking them out into the woods and killing them. He killed 3 prostitutes while he was in LA. So when he's finished doing that, he jumps back on a plane to Austria. Turns up in Austria. Meanwhile, there are no crimes happening. Well, plenty of crimes, but there are no killings happening. The serial killer goes quiet while Jack's in America. And at the same time period, 3 prostitutes get taken out and killed by Jack. And as soon as he comes back to Austria, the crimes start again. And so the police were obviously trying to investigate this guy, but they met with tremendous resistance from the public. People were just not having it. They were saying that the police couldn't solve the crime and they were trying to blame Jack Unterwelger. And Jack Unterwelger was saying the same thing. And he went on the run, ended up in Miami with his girlfriend, where he got caught. They put him in a really basic trap, actually, where he was going to get some money from an ex-girlfriend, sent to a shop, these money shop things. And he goes in and he gets arrested because they've traced the conversation. And he gets arrested, he gets extradited back to Austria, stands trial, obviously pleading innocent and all that. He's proven guilty with some forensic evidence, quite damning, and FBI testimony and all that. So he gets sent to prison, and he'd said, if they try and send me back to prison, I will commit suicide. And he did. He hung himself. And what I think is a little bit curious is that he used the same knot as was used in all the killings. And that was one of the pieces of evidence, that the same knot was used in every killing around the neck of the prostitute. And he used that exact knot to kill himself. And I think that was like a final signature, yeah, it was me, at the end, because he wouldn't have known exactly what knot to use otherwise.